LGBT coalition from the great city of San Francisco. So, welcome everyone. Let's make this great and let's get started.
All right, we will now begin with an invocation by Rabbi Denise Eger and Reverend Jonipher Kwong.
Good morning. Well, thanks to Rick Warren, we all know what invocation means now, right? Traditionally, an invocation is an invitation for the presence of God, higher power, the Holy One of many names to be amongst our midst. Well, today I'd like to reframe that a little bit and use this as an opportunity to invite a greater awareness of who we are as a people and to define that divine presence as the presence of diversity among us. So I'm going to take this moment to invoke the presence of people of color amongst us, Asian Americans, African Americans, Latino Americans, indigenous people, to be present here among us. And I also invoke the presence of people of faith to be among us here this morning. And most of all, I'd like to invite all of us to be fully present here in this moment, in the here and in the now. And by doing so, that means that we turn off our cell phones and stop texting our friends. And I invite you to, at this point, also set aside whatever agenda you might have come here with. Is there such a thing as a gay agenda? I haven't received a memo, if that were the case. So let's set aside our agenda for now, and I invite you to be fully present where you are, comfortably seated, and your feet firmly planted on the ground. And I invite you to become aware of your breathing. And as we breathe in, we remember that we dwell in the present moment. In breathing out, we know that it is a wonderful moment. Present moment, wonderful moment.
Isaiah the prophet taught us these words. Shalom, shalom, l'rachok u'lekarov. Peace, peace to the one who is far and near. This morning we say, peace, peace to those who have come from afar and those who have come from nearby. My friends, we have gathered on this morning from across our state to build a new coalition, a renewed movement for justice, for liberty and freedom. May the work of our hands on this day, and each day going forward, let us pledge to look beyond the setbacks and disappointments to a new day when there will be full inclusion and freedom for all LGBT people in our state, in our country, and in our world. Holy Blessed One, may the work we do together lay the groundwork for a new movement of change. Let us use our voices of respect. Let us use our voices of compassion. Let us use the richness of our mind and our intellect. And let us use the many resources from that deep well inside of us and share them with one another. As Harvey Milk said, hope will never be silent. So today, on this day, let a cacophony of sounds, of voices and ideas be heard. Let that symphony of sounds and voices and ideas meet and mold and take hold. May the one who we call by many names be with us and bless us in all of our endeavors, in all of our journeys. May it be with the one, with those who toil in the vineyards of justice and equality. May the one we call by many names inspire our Supreme Court justices to rule to overturn Proposition 8 because it is the right and just thing to do. And for those of us who believe in the audacity of the human spirit, may our spirits rise up to a new unity of purpose and action into a smooth sailing ship that glides beyond the horizon to equality. Let us be kind. Let us be gentle. Let us be strong. Let us be optimistic. Let us leave at the doors petty jealousies and ego. And let us move beyond our wounds to a place of confidence in our cause of justice and freedom and equality. The prophet Amos taught us, let justice roll down like waters, righteousness as a mighty stream. Let us not forget that the work we do together on this day is justice. That the work we do together is righteousness. And let us create strong coalitions with communication and respect for one another so that we will not just be waiting for the next campaign, but begin at last that great social movement for change, the true wave that will affirm our stories, our families, our lives, a great movement that will encompass all the work that we are doing and have done together, joining straight and gay, people of colors and all creeds and classes, bisexual and transgender, into one amazing, beautiful fabric of freedom, of liberty, of justice, and of equality. So may it be your will. Ken Yehi Ratzon.
Assemblymember John Perez wanted to be here, but he will be here a little bit later. So now we will go on and move on to a quick overview of the agenda. So a couple of things to bring to your attention. There will be different breakout opportunities to talk, meet, and work. And what we're hoping for is that you don't necessarily go to sessions that focus on your expertise, but where other interests that you have may lie. So that's one thing. Another is during the sessions that are being held throughout the summit, we are asking that you keep notes and turn them in at the end because we will make them available later on. So we can only do that if you help us out by turning in your notes. And one more thing, there's pictures being taken right outside here on your right-hand side. So if you want to, please feel free and go ahead. We encourage you to do that. They'll be up later on. And we're gonna be featuring open space technology. And to give you a quick word on that, I will let Larry take it away.
Hey everybody, how you doing? My name is Lawrence Ellis. I'm with Shades of Equality Coalition and also Paths to Change Institute. And a number of us got together, and we're not formally associated with Equality Summit, Equality California, and asked if we could democratize the process by allowing you, all of you who have topics, interests that you're passionate about, that you want to meet on those. And so they agreed to that. So we have a formal session listed on your agenda at 5:30 called Open Space Strategy Groups, where basically it's kind of like, lunchtime topic table. Someone wants to convene a topic on something. People who are interested in that go to that topic table. It's a little bit more complex than that. We'll explain it then. But that's not the only time we have to democratize the process. If you have a burning, pressing topic you want to convene on, you have lunch. There are a lot of eateries in this area, okay? And so there is a wall right behind registration where if you have a topic you want to meet on, we ask people to fill out forms in advance. That's not the only opportunity. If right now you have a topic, if in 5 minutes a topic sparks for you, if in a few minutes a topic sparks for you, put it on the wall. There'll be directions for the afternoon and then lunch, and then also you'll have another opportunity. The conference organizers are saying that the second to last plenary on strategies and options, you'll also have an option to go to that plenary or meet in breakout groups. So you have a lot of responsibility to do what you want to do. And the last thing, as I'm getting the 10-second sign from Ann, who's saying quiet you, is if you look in your packet, there's something called Open Space Template and Open Space Guidelines. Again, in the afternoon, we'll go over this more in depth. But if you want to meet on something, in particular, look at the template, put your name on the wall. Everybody, go look at the wall whenever you're on a break, whenever you go to the bathroom, see what topics are of interest, meet with the people. It'll say what they're meeting on, what it's about, where they're meeting, and fill in this template or some description of what you're doing and your names and contact numbers, because we're going to take all that information, put it on Google Docs afterwards so you can stay connected and continue to build the movement. Thanks.
All right, will the people that are participating in the election night summary make your way up here, please? Great. Now to speak and give us a... Okay. We're good to go? Okay. And now to speak to us and give us a quick summary of the Election '08, we're going to have staff and executive committee of Let California Ring, which is Geoff Kors and Vaishalee Raja. And we have staff and executive committee of and experts on the No on A campaign. Chad Griffin, Yvette Martinez, Sarah Reece, Lorri Jean, Kate Kendall, Geoff Kors, Delores Jacobs, Marty Rouse, Chris Maliwat, and Julie Davis. And we also have Pamela Brown, who's the policy director, and Molly McKay, the media director from Marriage Equality USA. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Go ahead.
Is this on? Okay. I'm going to try and do a 5-minute overview of Let California Ring. And for folks who don't know, Let California Ring is a public education project that is under Equality California Institute in coalition with 60 organizations. And there's stuff in your packets that list all the coalition partners who are part of it. And it really started in 2005 after we saw that the messaging that was being used in campaigns and marriage work around the country was not working based on losses in 13 states, including really a devastating 14 or 15-point loss in Oregon, where we had won so many anti-gay ballot measures before. We realized we needed to sort of take a step back and do different kinds of research to figure out how to talk about the freedom to marry. So instead of using the typical polling and focus groups, We worked with social psychologists who did 90-minute interviews with people who supported non-discrimination against LGBT people in employment and housing, but were against the freedom to marry. And this research was done with funding from the Human Rights Campaign's foundation. And what came out of that research was that all the typical rights discussion, the intellectual arguments about marriage being about rights, wasn't really working. It worked with a group of people, and those people had already moved, but it wasn't working with the next group. And what this next group really responded to was an emotional argument, that marriage was about love, that no one gets married so you can visit each other in the hospital. You get married because you fall in love with the person you want to spend the rest of your life with. So from that, a whole campaign was developed, which included a television ad, which was the garden wedding ad, which many of you may have seen, a house party field door-to-door campaign, and an earned media campaign. And that was launched as a test in Santa Barbara County in early 2008, before the court ruled, where it was run for 3 months, the commercial for 6 weeks, and the field campaign for 3 months with field organizers from Equality California Institute and the National Lesbian Gay Task Force. And then Monterey was used as a control group, where none of this was run. And at the end of the 3 months, what we found was significant movement on the freedom to marry, especially among our target groups, which were women under 50. In fact, in under 35-year-old women, we saw a 19-point increase in support for the freedom to marry as compared to Monterey, where nothing was done. Over the course of the entire campaign, over 200,000 people, new supporters of the freedom to marry, were identified. And what we saw on election day, I think, was really interesting. When we started, before the test was run, 2 minutes, I'm going to talk really quickly. Before the test was started, 36% of people in Santa Barbara media market supported the freedom to marry, as compared to 46 in Monterey. On election day, we won Santa Barbara County by 7 points and Monterey by 3. So what we saw there was that once people are educated outside of a political campaign in the months and years beforehand, they never move back. And I think one of the messages that we all need to take from that is the education work that happens now, and happens now and before any possible next election, is critical. Because in the last month of a campaign, it's very hard to sort of move people on an issue like this. It's actually changing hearts and minds ahead of time. And public education does work. And that's the other message from this campaign. There's a lot more detail in your packets, and Vaishalee is going to talk a lot about a different part of this campaign that happened after the Santa Barbara test. So I'll turn it over to her. Save time.
Thanks, everyone. So the primary goal of the Let California Ring campaign is to educate Californians about
I'm Geoff Kors, Executive Director of Equality California and Equality California Institute.
And I'm Vaishalee Raja, the new Communications Director for Equality California. So as I was saying, the primary goal of the Let California Ring campaign is to educate Californians about the importance of the freedom to marry, and to really create a climate in which we can sort of discuss the issue in a way that really advances public opinion. So both paid and earned media and just all sorts of communication played a very critical role in the Let California Ring campaign. It was developed to really complement the field efforts and all the other efforts of the campaign. During the initial launch, GLAAD helped to lead the communications efforts with Equality California. So in order to prepare for the public media launch of the campaign, we identified and trained over 200 couples, activists, allies, all over the state in LA, San Diego, Sacramento, San Francisco. There was a website, social network, and blog created to energize a new audience. The interactive site offers a platform for people to share their personal stories, and it has several tools and resources, including conversation starters. So the focus, in terms of the earned media campaign, initially the focus was really the garden wedding ad, and again, this is the ad where the bride is walking down the aisle and faces many obstacles. So that ad generated a lot of national and international press interest. Ultimately, because of the ad, over 8 million people heard about the campaign. Most recently, the newest part of the campaign was really a focus with ethnic media. We had ads featuring gay and lesbian couples, their families, and such allies as Reverend Cecil Williams and Helen Chavez, the wife of Cesar Chavez. You can see some of the ads back there, and also I think in your packets. There were a series of 12 ads, print, radio, and online, and they ran in over 191 outlets. It was one of the biggest ad buys in terms of an advocacy issue in the ethnic press in California. In addition, GLAAD met with top ethnic press reporters and editors to sort of give them advice and counseling on covering the issue of marriage. Many of these outlets had never covered marriage, so many of them were actually nervous about how their audiences were going to react, but actually overwhelmingly, the response was positive. In fact, in Fresno, on a Spanish language radio station, there were listeners who actually called in and they were pleasantly surprised to hear the ads. So overall, it was a pretty exciting and groundbreaking campaign. I have 30 seconds, so I'm trying to wrap it up. Ultimately, we know that public education is going to continue to be crucial. So we are really looking forward to hearing from you in terms of your contributions, any ideas you have about growing the Let California Ring Coalition, growing the campaign. So if you do have any ideas around that, please come and find me. I'll be at the press check-in table and sort of all over the place today. Also visit the website. It's letcaliforniaring.org.
And now we're going to hear from the No on 8 panel. Who's going to start? Lorri Jean.
Good morning. My name's Lorri Jean. I'm the CEO of the LA Gay and Lesbian Center. And to all of those of you who came in from out of town, welcome to sunny Southern California. I've been asked to talk a little bit about the campaign structure of the No on 8 campaign and how it came about. There was a lot that happened, and so I'm going to try to focus on the most significant highlights. Some more details can be found on the LA Gay and Lesbian Center's website. We have a frequently asked questions section about the campaign. So if you want more information, you can go there. 4 years ago, almost to the day, on January 22nd, 2005, a meeting was called at the San Francisco LGBT Center to talk about the likelihood that right-wing extremists were going to put some kind of an anti-gay ballot measure on the ballot regarding marriage and possibly domestic partnerships. Representatives of several national organizations were there and a number of California-based organizations. The previous January, Gavin Newsom had started issuing marriage licenses in San Francisco, and we all know what happened then. And yes, a round of applause for Mayor Newsom. And we were already in the courts by that time, and we knew that the question was not whether extremists would try to put a measure on the ballot, but when. We also knew that one of the biggest problems that our communities around the country have faced with such ballot measures is that they did not get started early enough. So we were hoping to avoid that problem. And one of the results of this meeting was a decision to start organizing our community and our allies to prepare for an eventual anti-LGBT ballot measure. The first organizing meeting was called in March of 2005 and was held at the LA Gay and Lesbian Center. And invited to this meeting were representatives of LGBT and allied organizations, California-based and national, labor, clergy, AIDS service organizations, civil liberties organizations, and more. And the purpose was to discuss the necessity of starting organizing early. At this very first meeting, we began talking about the structure. Lists were brainstormed of more people to get involved, and which was a little hard to get people involved because there was no measure on the ballot, and so some people didn't see the urgency. But we persevered, and we tackled questions like, what should the structure of the campaign be? What would the campaign committee job descriptions be? What would the rules of engagement be? Financial requirements and commitments, and what would happen to the lists that were developed during the campaign. We tried to get a lot of this stuff out of the way when heads were cool and we weren't in the midst of a campaign. and what kind of organizing should we be doing in communities of color, in faith communities, in labor. These kinds of questions came up right from the beginning. And ultimately, we decided on a two-tier structure. A campaign committee that would be comprised of representatives of organizations who wanted to be involved, and then that campaign committee would elect an executive committee. We also figured that as we got close to any campaign, that this campaign committee would grow dramatically, and that it was likely the executive committee would grow too, because as people got involved and organizations or individuals were making major financial commitments, they would probably want a seat on the executive committee, and that's sort of how it works in the campaign world, and so we figured that would have to grow. And it was likely that in the really heat of the campaign, the final few months, that larger executive committee would probably need to appoint a much smaller group that could be nimble and make, spur-of-the-moment decisions if any of those kinds of things came up. And that's all is ultimately what happened. A campaign committee was formed. They elected their first executive committee of 7 people that included myself, Oscar de la O from Bienestar, Maya Harris from the ACLU of Northern California, Delores Jacobs from the San Diego Center, Kate Kendall from the National Center for Lesbian Rights, Geoff Coors from Equality California, and Andy Wong from Chinese for Affirmative Action. By the summer of 2005, we had subcommittees: hiring, research and message, finance, fundraising, field, rules of engagement, legal, and we were working on hiring someone to be the campaign manager, because we knew that we were not the campaign experts. Although some of these people do have significant experience in campaigns, we needed to hire a professional and a team of professionals. And so ultimately we began interviewing. And unlike what happened in Prop 22, when not a single experienced campaign professional who ran statewide campaigns in California was willing to take the job, this time, everybody in the country who ran statewide campaigns in California was interested. Ultimately, we narrowed it down to 2 firms. We hired one. We started working with them, and there was an effort to try to qualify a ballot measure for 2006 that failed. After that was over, we decided to part ways with that particular firm, and we went to the second firm that had arisen in the first interview process, and that was Steve Smith of Dewey Square, who ultimately became our campaign manager. Steve's job was to design and run the campaign. And he had run more than a dozen statewide campaigns in California and had never lost one. So he had the best record, and he in turn brought in Ogilvy Public Relations to do the media. We interviewed internet firms, and BlackRock was hired. He brought in fundraiser, and basically with the concurrence of the campaign committee and the executive committee, we built a campaign team. Our field operation was already going strong, and that was the one component of the campaign that our community did run and that professional campaign consultants did not. And until the final weeks, I'm not sure how many weeks that is, of the campaign, that was run by the National Gay and Lesbian Task Force. We also hired some internal staffing, ultimately, to help us, because we felt like we needed somebody who was going to be helping us deal with community engagement and things like that. So we hired Dale Kelly Bankhead to do that. In the final 6 weeks or 2 months of the campaign, a mini EC was empowered, and that was me, Kate, Geoff, Heather Kerrigan of the ACLU, who had replaced Maya when she moved to New York in August, and she was from the ACLU of Southern California, and Michael Fleming from the David Bonnet Foundation. All of these structures remained in place until mid to late September, when Patrick Guerriero from the Gill Action Fund came in and took over the internal campaign manager role, and brought in a network of people to help him, including additional campaign consultants, media consultants, and pollsters. Quiet, you, is my sign. So, all right. I will listen. Thank you.
Next up is Chad Griffin, also from No on 8.
Is this working? No. You can hear me? Okay. I was not one of those that was initially hired on the campaign, so I sort of have the benefit of being an outsider for most of the campaign. And then sorry, thought she introduced me. I'm Chad Griffin. I have a political consulting firm called Griffin Shockey. My business partner, Christina, is here. She's the lone straight person in the room, perhaps. And okay, lots of different, I see hands. Hands are going up everywhere. And we do two different things. We have a group of progressive philanthropist and donor clients that we represent, which was my initial involvement in the campaign, and we brought Rob Reiner and Steve Bing and Brad Pitt and others into the early phases of this campaign. We set up initially, once the entire team for the campaign was hired, we set up an effort to raise from the non-traditional LGBT donor world, and we focused on my clients and other straight donor clients here in California and around the country. And one of the first things that we did was to do a poll, because we wanted to verify. I never trust other people's research, even though it may be right. I want to see my own research. And the very first thing we did in July was we did our own poll, so that we would know from people that we trusted what the actual numbers were, what a potential route to victory might be. And that poll came back showing that we had a very tough haul. It showed in July a 52% yes vote, which ended up being the final result, as you know, a 38% no vote, and then the rest undecided. It also showed that 48% of California voters were not just going to vote yes, but they were strongly going to vote yes, considering voting yes, and that is something you don't often see on an initiative campaign. So we went the additional 3 months playing that role in this campaign and raising and then transferring funds into the campaign. And then towards the very end, about 4 weeks out, our firm was brought in to do the media and to be the media consultants on the campaign. And what we saw, the situation analysis that we all had about 10 minutes to do, was that we all knew it was going to be a difficult haul to get over 50. All private polls, nothing showed ever that we were winning by any tremendous amount. There were a few public polls that indicated that. It was not my belief that we had an easy haul. And with the campaigns, the Yes campaign's early ads, what you saw, their ads up against ours, and their message of they're going to teach that boys can marry boys in school, there was a drastic drop. And in those first days, when we came into the campaign, we were about, and someone can correct me if I'm wrong, we were about 17 points down at that point, and that was about 4 weeks out. Our first recommendation was we have to knock down the other side's argument. They had a single argument, as everyone remembers. They started with Gavin, and it was the kitchen sink ad, but that ad had in it that they're going to teach gay marriage in our schools, and then it went from there, and that was their single message all the way through the campaign. And so the first thing we did, we came in on a Friday. On Sunday, we called Jack O'Connell and asked Jack O'Connell to be in an ad. He said yes on Sunday night, and we shot an ad with him on Tuesday morning, and he was on TV that evening. And we all need to remember Jack O'Connell for doing that for us. Because of all of the ads, Jack O'Connell moved us 8 points in 7 days. And though the message in that Jack O'Connell ad might not have been one of tremendous inspiration and one that moved me and perhaps all of you in this room, but Jack O'Connell had credibility, and Jack O'Connell had a title that said Superintendent of Public Instruction. And he very strongly knocked down their argument. We were able to go about 8 days with him. Each night there was a test, and he moved us each night. Once we reached saturation with Jack O'Connell, we then decided that we needed to move on that issue more, and perhaps we needed a second validator, and we needed to move women. And so we went to Dianne Feinstein. A whole group of people went to Dianne Feinstein and convinced her to do the spot that you ultimately saw on TV. Dianne Feinstein moved us about another 5 points. She moved us every single night. We ended the campaign with what we call a closer spot that sort of mixed in the governor, Dianne Feinstein, and Obama. And that ad, unfortunately, I maintain if we had a couple more weeks, if our numbers had kept moving, we could have gotten there. But we didn't. We came close. We ended up with a result that was, unfortunately, the poll that I had done back in July. I have 30 seconds to go. And so, you know, a research-driven, focused campaign works. What you have to remember when you test ads, and a lot of people in this room, including myself, wanted to see inspirational spots and wanted ads that moved us. I did not concern myself with those of us in this room. I concerned myself with a tiny sliver of California voters who were not moved by gay people, the word gay, or gay marriage. Whether we like it or not, how depressing it was for me, oftentimes being one of the only LGBT people on our strategy calls and talking about how you can do an ad that would get us what we need to do without using those words. Our research was very clear that it showed this group of, I need 20 more seconds. This group of voters were moved by discrimination and by treating people differently under the law. And that message worked. We didn't have enough time at the end, but we have to remember ultimately what motivates us might not be what motivates those that we need to motivate. And someone in my position cares about 50 plus 1 on Election Day. We almost got there, and I guarantee you we'll ultimately get there.
Hi there. I'm Yvette Martinez, and I was the political director for the campaign. I was brought in August, about 3 months before the election, and I oversaw the endorsements and engagement of our constituency groups. And that involved gathering an incredibly diverse, broad array of elected officials, civil rights leaders, faith-based groups, ethnic leaders, businesses, labor unions, etc. But the challenge with all of our constituency groups was the lateness. A campaign is quick and dirty, and you cannot make up, you know, time and relationships in a 3-month short span of time. So we had to quickly engage people. Also, another thing was many of our traditional groups that do stuff during campaigns, labor unions specifically, were so tied up in other campaigns. Obama, Mark Ridley Thomas, whatever it was, you know, they had other priorities. And actually, people believed that we were going to be okay. And so not until the end did we really scare people and force them to do more than they were doing at that time. Give more money, send bodies to our volunteer offices, speak at rallies, etc. So, you know, there was a lull for a while. And then finally people started seeing the writing on and, you know, how close the polls really were. And then that's when people kicked into gear. But it was late, and as someone said, we need to do this work now, and you know, we have a lot of work to do. We have a lot of work to do with working class labor unions. We have a lot of work to do with ethnic communities, with the Latino communities, with African American communities in Los Angeles. I hope we're doing that work now, because it's going to be too late if we find ourselves in this situation again. Faith-based communities, you know, the faith community actually did a lot, and we had, you know, services that Denise participated in Los Angeles, but we needed to do more and then start earlier. As I said, the 3-month timeline was just way too late. But I am proud of the people who stepped forward, the Republicans, the Democrats, and you know, there are many things I think we would do differently next time, and I hope people are open to doing them and not just waiting for the last minute to make things happen.